I am not ready to go live because I can't see you.
You are live. Welcome, everybody. This is Martin Gershon and Kate Brumme, and we are here today with another BetterHealth webinar series. We're going to be talking about leaders, innovators, the next generation of incredible CEO entrepreneurs who are going to be solving real-world healthcare problems. And I am absolutely thrilled by the opportunity to speak to Kate today, who is a real leader in entrepreneurship. Her organization, MassChallenge, has helped over 3,000 companies. They are located in the United States and Switzerland and Mexico and several locations around the world. And it is a real honor to work with Kate today because, most importantly, the value sets that Kate and I share in our discussions are very much aligned about supporting leadership, collaboration, teamwork, and mission-driven companies. So, Kate, thank you so much for taking the time in your incredibly busy schedule to come here today to speak to a terrific group of listeners. And before I introduce you in any further way, I just want to say thank you for everyone for tuning in. You've been incredibly supportive over the past several months. We've gotten fantastic feedback. We actually just heard from one of our featured speaker companies that they have received a multi-million-dollar term sheet based upon one of the presentations. And that's what I hope will happen more and more for MassChallenge companies and others. I also want to highlight the fact that we, throughout the month, have been focusing in on women leaders in honor of International Women's Day on the 8th. And we have been focusing in on some terrific women who have moved the needle on health and science and other fields. And we're going to play on that theme today for many different reasons. One is because MassChallenge has an incredible presence in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and particularly on women leaders. So, Kate, I know that was a bit of a long introduction, but it's exciting to speak with you today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal journey, how you came to work in this incredible organization, and a little bit about the organization, just as a background for the viewers?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today to talk about something I know we're both really passionate about, which is supporting entrepreneurs at the frontiers of their field, do really important things to make the world a better place. And nowhere is that mission more important, perhaps, than in healthcare. So, thank you for the opportunity. As you said, I have the huge privilege of leading MassChallenge. We're a global nonprofit with the mission to equip bold entrepreneurs to disrupt the status quo and drive meaningful change. We've been at this work for 13 years now and have had the immense privilege of supporting over 4,000 startups, 6,000 founders launch and grow. These companies have gone on to raise well over $9 billion in funding, and over 65% are still alive and working towards their ultimate mission and ambition. And we come at our work in a unique way. We work alongside our commercial peers, but in order to work with the highest impact, highest potential companies early in their journeys, we've made the hard decision to take no equity and instead bet back on and support entrepreneurs, as we said, with that high impact, high potential through an amazing community of volunteer experts, corporate partners, and others. I come at this work with a long-term passion, interest, and commitment to the role that both innovators and the private sector can play in making the world a better place, and a deep-seated belief that there's opportunity for us to reimagine the way that business and society work together to drive even more impactful outcomes for more people. And so I love that our work embraces the huge power that startups have in creating a better world, and encourages us to think differently around how we support these entrepreneurs to achieve bigger outcomes.
You kept mentioning outcomes, and obviously in healthcare, that's a critical issue. In many areas, it's a critical issue, but certainly in healthcare and in life sciences. And I really want to emphasize that. So the mission-driven aspect of many of the things that you and I are involved with really resonates. I believe that one of the things that we've discussed, previously, is the pivot that is taking place in early startups on the leadership side. And to me, this is very, very exciting because it means that it's not necessarily what happened in the past 20 years, which was Silicon Valley supporting companies with hyper growth and perhaps somewhat of a blind eye to some of the important ethical, value-driven core values that I think people now are recognizing are really the sustainable drivers of companies. I personally believe that COVID, the silver lining for this incredibly horrible pandemic, has been an awareness of what humanity means for people, what health means for people, what coming together as a community means for each one of us. And so perhaps we can start the conversation a little bit about leadership and the path forward, because I think what you're saying and highlighting is something that I personally, and I know that Endeavor strongly supports, which is it's about impact. It's about impacting people's problems and solving those problems. And so perhaps if you could tell us a little bit about some of the incredible people or companies that you feel have made an impact, and you have a number of unicorns under your belt right now, which is really fantastic, as well as early stage startups that are driving 1,000 miles an hour.
That's right. So Martin, I think there's so much that's important to unpack in that opening and that question. Maybe to just comment on a couple of things before I highlight some of the entrepreneurs that we think are just doing extraordinary things and are real examples of the folks that will change the world for the better. One is, without a doubt, we see the majority of our founders are purpose-driven in some way, shape, or form. I mean, entrepreneurs see a problem in the world and are willing to take on the enormous uncertainty, risk, and challenge of trying to solve that problem by starting with a small insight and building something that's at scale. And I think our hope is that, the silver lining of COVID, if there was one, a real accelerant for a lot of the forward-leaning technologies in healthcare looking to change the way the system works, how care is delivered, how care is accessible, how it's affordable. And so I think that is certainly a powerful tailwind for those purpose-driven entrepreneurs, alongside, again, the silver lining, if you would, for the challenging market that is venture capital right now, is a revisiting of the importance of investing in exceptional teams, building durable businesses with real intrinsic value over the long-term horizon. And that, our hope and belief is that that will allow funding to flow to many of our founders who may be less jazzy or sexy or even fast growing, but have real opportunity to drive outsized both impact and economic returns. So a couple, just to share two or three examples of the types of companies we see and we're excited about, and I think really demonstrate the type of entrepreneur that's working in this hard, complex space of healthcare. So Spring Health is led by April Koh. She's based in New York, and they're working to eliminate every barrier to mental health is their big, bold statement. And today, what they're doing is they're providing comprehensive mental health solution for employers and health plans using clinically validated technology. And I think this is a really important piece of the puzzle for April is her commitment to using evidence-based science to drive real outcomes for the people that she's serving, even though that path to market and to growth is longer and harder to build that evidence base and get to scale. Another amazing example in our portfolio, and then I'll stop, earlier in her journey, is Nicole Wagner at Lambda Vision. And Lambda Vision is developing the first protein-based artificial retina to ideally restore vision for patients who are blind or who have lost a lot of blindness. What's amazing about Nicole is that she has entered into what is now a multi-year partnership with the International Space Station National Lab, with support from NASA and others, to advance their science and quite possibly commercialize their technology on the International Space Station, because the benefit of microgravity is so significant on their solution. So when you talk to Nicole, what she would say is, this is not the path I thought I would be taking, and it is not the easy path, but it is the one that will allow me to have the maximum impact on the patient if I can and when I can get this technology into market.
Fantastic stories. I mean, as you said earlier, there's so much to unpack from the things that you just said. So first of all, one of the themes really has been innovation is amazing, technology is amazing, but that's just a tool. Innovation for innovation's sake is really not worth anything except as an amusement. Innovation that changes outcomes, which is what you talked about, impacting people's health, well-being, lifestyle, that is really what matters. And what I hear also in your words is something that we at Endeavor echo constantly. It's never too early to partner. It's never too early to collaborate. And that begins with leadership, vision, and team building. And it sounds very much like these stories that you just talked about reflect a lot of that. I know that large corporations like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Apple, like Google have invested almost $100 billion into healthcare and life sciences over the past few years. 250 investments alone by Google Ventures that now has 55% of their venture team in healthcare. They want to know about the companies that are moving the needle. They are ready to begin to talk, even in informal ways, with early stage, even seed stage companies. And so I would love for you things in terms of CEO and beginning to start these dialogues with credible leaders like Google Ventures and Apple and Amazon and Microsoft. Because I think that collaborative effort speaks to the mission-driven qualities that now are being incorporated very much so into large corporations.
Martin, you broke up there for a minute, so I just want to make sure I'm answering the question, which is how can small companies partner effectively with large companies to move faster, farther together? Is that
absolutely? And that there is a willingness on the large corporations from big tech and others, and now large pharma and biotech, to reach out to early stage companies in seed and Series A to understand what they're doing and to get involved before they come in perhaps in Series B.
That's right. I think we are excited and animated by the recognition from industry, both big tech and the life science healthcare industry more specifically, about their role in supporting innovation, fostering and incubating and testing it, and then ultimately getting it to scale through a bunch of different roles. So we work really closely with a number of partners within the tech and healthcare space. We just announced our health tech program yesterday, so please go to our website and check it out. These companies totally rock. But what I would say is our partners there are very thoughtful about how they can support and advance these companies' growth and development, whether that's providing mentorship to give customer feedback in a more rapid cycle, open, no strings attached way, whether that's offering their facilities or their systems to pilot and allow for small companies to learn, in the real world, or act as a customer. And then you highlighted their role often as an investor. And particularly in the area of healthcare and life science, where the complexity can be high, the regulatory environment can be overwhelming for a small company, if you would, and where therefore the need to partner is often quite great for small companies. We think it's important and necessary that our partners across the payer, provider, technology landscape are coming to the table to support early stage companies in the healthcare space for both for mutual gain and ultimately mutual benefit.
Absolutely. No, it's a very dynamic time, and it's a time where leaders have the opportunity to open doors that they didn't have just a few years ago. I want to take a pause for just a second to thank our audience, because we're getting an incredible number of comments, and I want to really encourage people to tell us where they're calling in from. We have a geography right now which is pretty global. We have people calling in from Turkey. We have people calling in from all over the United States and from Mexico and from Canada. I really want to thank Raj for dialing in, and Jenny and Chad and Amber and Henry and Scott and Malik, Mustafa from Turkey. Thank you for dialing into this incredible 45-minute discussion. Please let us know where you're calling in from, and please keep the comments coming. We will answer all the comments, if not today, throughout the week, but we will get back to you. So one of the things I just want to continue this discussion on, which is focused in on partnership and collaboration, which I believe really begins at the top. It begins with the CEO, with an understanding that you can't do it by yourself anymore. You can't be in a silo. And frankly, it's more fun and more energizing to have an incredible team that supports your vision. And one of the things that I see that is really an incredible outgrowth of the money and liquidity that's being pulled into healthcare. And by the way, Endeavor has done a deep dive research and looked at the liquidity pull. It's 5 to 10x greater than other sectors, which means that money is coming out of the sectors that were benefiting by liquidity over the past 20 years. And so from an investor perspective, it's a fantastic time to look and to support these mission-driven companies. And one of the things that has happened in terms of the ripple effect from the money from big tech is that now big pharma has opened up corporate accelerators, which traditionally have not really played an incredibly important role. But now look at Sanofi with 80 investments over the past year, the last one being 1.2 billion in total for early stage companies, or Pfizer or Merck Germany down in Israel, focusing in on digital health. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about that and kind of pick your brain a little bit and see what you see in terms of the next few years, how corporations and early stage companies are looking to work together. A little bit of a crystal ball here.
Oh boy, forecasting is always a dangerous game, but I'll do my best. We think, and I think the data supports this, that it is imperative for large companies not only to innovate, and historically innovation was around internally driven R&D, but to innovate through and with external partners, including startups. And that this trend, while it has been bumpy over the long arc of time, if you look at corporate venture arms specifically, that there is momentum that will persist around working effectively with the startup ecosystem to both learn and foster exciting areas, to accelerate the development of certain solutions, solve internal problems, and ultimately meet your customer needs more successfully. I think we're continuing to see that companies are building their internal capabilities to do this well. It is hard and unnatural in many ways for companies that are very large to work with companies that are very small, whether you think about the nitty-gritty of compliance and procurement and budget processes, or whether you think about strategy level questions around, will this partnership move the needle in a way that is meaningful to shareholders? You can see friction points immediately there. But when you talk to CEOs, BCG did an interview, did a research on this beginning of last year. 90% of CEOs would say innovation is a top 3 priority for their companies. 85% are saying working with startups has to be part of that, and less than 50% are satisfied with how they're doing it today. So we think we will continue to see companies invest in, work hard to be better partners, more effective engagers of the startup ecosystem over time. And companies that you highlighted who have big dollars in the game, committed teams, and CEOs who really understand the internal system and the internal investment that's required to be at the table in a compelling way, I think will lead the way.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of what you're saying is about needs-driven liquidity. And for me, that means large industry has recognized 2 things. One is they have certain core competencies that intersect extremely well with healthcare and life sciences and can amplify their core business. And second, other industries like large pharma, which were slow moving and slow growth, now recognize by bringing in innovation, bringing in the exciting thought processes of entrepreneurs into intrapreneurship, bringing that mindset into slow moving companies and digitalizing those companies can solve many of their problems. Mm-hmm. Case in point, an incredible company, which we had highlighted here a few weeks ago, run by Mike Graffeo from Harvard Business School, who's the CEO of a company called Fluidform. They are solving a problem that is critical for large pharma, which is the cost of drug discovery and drug development. And you only have to look at companies like In Silico, which have now, for the first time, brought a drug to market in 30 months. When normally it takes 12 to 12 and a half years at a cost of $2.5 billion. So what I see here in the corporate accelerator, corporate venture community is problem solution. And they have recognized that problem solution is a combination of great entrepreneur CEOs backed by organizations, frankly, like yours, that provide another critical component here, which is the role of mentors and advisors in this ecosystem that you have built out and that we're trying to build out at Endeavor. Because that support network allows for companies to grow faster in a more direct line. And I think most importantly, recognize what is on the other side of the table. What does your counterpart need? What are they looking for? Because any great business has to recognize what the customer or what the client needs. So the distinction for me between innovation for innovation's sake and technology for technology's sake, and understanding what the needs are of a community or a corporation or a community of corporations, that's really what's exciting here. Because large industry is reaching out to entrepreneurs. And so when you talk about a couple of these companies, for example, about mental health, or you talk about companies that are looking at incredible technology for, replacing retina, I mean, these are things that are just outstanding. The mental health aspect and the injury that has occurred from COVID is staggering.
Yes.
And so perhaps we can talk a little bit about this needs-driven kind of event. I think that what I see is mental health. I see femtech as a big component of what's being moved forward. And I see, of course, as I mentioned earlier, drug discovery.
Yep.
What is it that you see? What can you tell us a little bit about some of the amazing companies that are coming through your pipeline?
Yeah, that's great. And if you don't mind, I'm going to piggyback on one of the examples you were giving just to shine a spotlight on one of our other alum. As you say, the drug discovery space has been exciting and dynamic for a number of years. In the sort of earlier days, it was very much around the automation and process flow, if you would, as opposed to the way in which the science was done. And now what you're seeing is the combination of the bits and bytes, or the biology plus the comp sci, is creating some really exciting breakthroughs. And Spanios Labs is a 2019 MassChallenge alumni that's working in patient-derived organoids to accelerate drug development processes using also an artificial intelligence overlay, if you would, to expedite the drug discovery from rare cancers. And it's the idea is that you can move faster pre-clinical to identify the right high potential indicators and move them through. And it's this very powerful combination solution that we hope will dramatically accelerate the efficiency and then reduce time to market for really high potential drugs in the space. So you had mentioned sort of areas that we're excited about that we're watching. You've highlighted one. The drug discovery we think is really powerful, really important. Femtech specifically, we've been working in and around maternal health as one underserved area in that broader femtech ecosystem, and it's part of an even broader tent, which we've been working in for a number of years in health equity more broadly. So identifying and supporting entrepreneurs working in areas of healthcare that are underserved, either because of the types of people that tend to get funded in healthcare innovation, or because they're very complex areas that require new models, new partnerships, new reimbursement processes, if you would. So certainly an area that we think is necessary and critical. Part of that broader space is we're doing some really exciting work with AARP around the age tech. How do we personalize medicine, provide opportunities for patients to receive better in-home care, stay in home for longer, and ultimately longevity around that. And we think there's both high impact and also just some really exciting science in that area. And certainly we're as excited about personalized medicine as I think most people are as well, and the opportunity it could have to really change individuals' lives, and particularly in rare disease categories.
I mean, such a great segue for my next set of comments. This is absolutely fantastic. So I want to highlight an incredible company, and for full disclosure, we have made an investment in this company because we feel strongly that it represents many of the things that we're talking about, and it's called Clinical Trial Hero. It's run by a CEO who is, a physician, a cancer survivor, and part of a minority cohort. And his focus really is to improve the efficiency and speed in which underserved populations can enroll in clinical trials. He has developed an app that allows the company to enroll patients 52% faster than clinical research organizations currently, and sustain that and engage and develop a community which is focused in on democratizing healthcare and the access to clinical trials and novel medications. So we're excited to be part of that. And I think that speaks to one of the amazing transitions in innovation and technology, which I want to open the door on, which is drug discovery and the ability to really understand that democratizing healthcare so that some of these incredible achievements and innovations and discoveries can not just be for a select few, but can be delivered across the board. And so I think diversity, equity, and inclusion is probably the next subject that I think is a nice segue here, because this particular company crosses over that intersection between, DEI and innovation and mission driven. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about some of those things.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really important work to do here, and I think it's necessary to sort of segment out the ways in which we can support a more equitable healthcare system, creating and delivering more equitable healthcare outcomes. So one is identifying, supporting, backing historically underrepresented entrepreneurs, regardless of what they're working on, because they will bring a different perspective to the work they're doing, the same way I bring a different perspective to my work than you bring to yours, given who you are, where you're from, what you look like, and your lived experience. So first and foremost, and we know the stats around VC funding to historically underrepresented founders, female, Black, brown specifically, are atrocious. So that is necessary and important and just as critical, if not more, in healthcare than in innovation or startup startups more broadly. The second is support for solutions that are designed to target an underserved area of healthcare. Again, regardless of what the founders look like, I think often you find people solving problems they've experienced. So there may be some intersection there with support for underrepresented founders, but there may not. And I think you highlighted femtech maternal health as one example of an area of healthcare that has been underinvested in, overlooked for any number of reasons, but is deserving of additional support and funding in order to create equitable outcomes for patients writ large. And then the third is investment also in cost-effective access to quality care. And this will require us to embrace and experiment with new models, investigate our reimbursement paradigms in order to allow for, again, within the right risk frameworks, but allow for broader experimentation, and then intentionally build companies that are reaching out of hospital systems and into communities that don't have access to the quality care in the format. And I think we talked briefly about the impact of COVID on of getting at least virtual care, past its initial inflection point, and that's one, but only one of many high potential areas of opportunity and excitement. So I think we need to be thinking about backing entrepreneurs in each of those three categories if we are looking to create a more equitable healthcare system, driving equitable outcomes for all of our citizens in the US, much less the world.
I completely agree. And that's why it's so exciting to talk with you. And it's a lot of fun as well. We have some really terrific comments. Thank you again, everybody, for all of your comments. We will get back to you, but I want to continue the momentum of the conversation before getting into some of the questions. And I want to kind of pick up on the theme about femtech. So there is an incredible early stage company that I'm really excited about talking about. It's called Zuri. And this is a company that is a combination of a fellow named Blair Matthews, who is an African-American gentleman, and also his co Cardelli, and they are focused in on the problems that couples have in infertility. Now, this, of course, is a new field and an exciting field. We had the really great opportunity of working with Kindbody earlier in October, which is an incredible story. And I think Zuri is following in those footsteps. So Kindbody, for those people that don't know, really was a group of incredible physician led women who were in endocrinology and in women's health. And back in 2018 said enough is enough. We are not getting the kind of care that we need for in vitro fertilization. And they took up the challenge. And they were struggling for quite a number of years. They were literally delivering medicine out of a truck at Washington Square Park until Google Ventures put their hand on their shoulder and said, and now we're in. And now they're a $2 billion company. They've contracted with Walmart. They're delivering proper, women's health to all of the Walmart employees. And I see that as really a break in the dam, because now large corporations like Walmart have recognized the importance of women's health, and young entrepreneurs like, Blair and Juliana are now recognizing that there's opportunities really to change the course of healthcare for women. So perhaps you can speak to that. That's a very exciting dynamic. It speaks to some of the things that we're talking about, the interplay between large corporations and, let's say, underserved populations, underutilized resources. Love to hear your thoughts about femtech and large corporations.
So first of all, hurrah for your entrepreneur, because that type of stamina and perseverance and determination is extraordinary. And certainly as we think about frontier founders breaking new ground in categories that have been overlooked or forgotten or undiscovered, And often it's not only about the science or technology, but it's also about the market education and the new ways of going to market that also have to be invented, built, scaled by these founders. And so the work that they take on when they're at the frontier of these efforts is just enormous. And I think you see that in the brief story that you told. And I think also what we hear in your example is the power of partnerships. So when people come through and they say, I'm going to back you in an outsized way because I believe in the long-term impact of what you're doing, that creates breakthrough effects, certainly for this company, but also potentially for the category. And so I think that's a really critical example, and one in which other industry or corporate partners who may be listening in can be inspired also to make some big bets in areas that they know are meaningful to their stakeholders, but have yet to be fully served. And certainly 50% of your workforce is a great investment to make.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to take time for a question. It's directed at you, Kate. The question is, Kate, very exciting conversation. Can you tell us a little bit more as CEO, entrepreneurs, what is MassChallenge looking for in its leaders?
Sure. So I think it's really important to highlight we have a unique selection model. So we will work with about 550 startups this year. It's about 700 entrepreneurs based on the size of our founding teams. And it's not, in fact, our staff that sit in a room and select our entrepreneurs, but we mobilize an extraordinary group of volunteer experts from diverse backgrounds and perspectives to help us identify, select, and then ultimately support our companies. And so our selection process asks our judges to give feedback to startups. That's super important. We think their time is valuable, and so we want them to get something out of the selection process. But then to help us identify startups that have high impact and high potential. And we have some prompts around that. But what we see in our data is that our judges, as a diverse group, coming to individual perspectives, are as good as venture capitalists at identifying really compelling problems being addressed by really compelling teams.
I want to shift a little bit, and I want to talk about some of the things that are happening in core science, because this is a longer term play. Now, we're talking right now about amazing things that are happening of the moment, 2023. We feel, I think both of us, that there is a mindset shift. And that mindset shift is about leadership, it's about collaboration, it's about partnerships, it's about addressing areas of underserved communities, underserved, let's say not even diseases, but health issues. We haven't even talked about health and wellness yet, which is a whole other area. But I want to circle back to this notion of science, because I am a neuroscientist by training. I'm an oncologist, an immunologist. And so at the end of the day, science does drive a lot of important things in healthcare. So there is a company called Ecotone, which is run by an amazing a CEO of color. And his name is Malik Nee. And he is an incredible PhD geneticist who is looking at some hardcore issues in science, which is gene therapy. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a very difficult area for people to invest in. It's a very difficult area for people to get their arms around. But now I want to bring up kind of the next wave, which is, what is AI doing? What are the next generation of computers doing? We hear things about quantum computing, 151 million times faster than supercomputers. And so there is embedded in our conversation a very personal nature, mental health, women's health issues, democratizing healthcare. But I want to shift just for a second into this hardcore science, because I think that the combination of the two is an extraordinarily powerful event. And I know that what they're doing at Ecotone, and again, for full disclosure, we are participating with the company. They are looking at taking AI and changing the shape of rare diseases, particularly in the neurologic space, like Alzheimer's disease. So I would love to hear your thoughts about next generation science, what the feel is for the future in terms of that integration.
It's great. And this is the perfect moment for me to make sure your audience knows that I am a public policy and business major with deep passion for this area. But there are a couple of areas we're excited, and I think I alluded to one of our companies earlier. I think as I think of the three examples I'd love to share, all of them are actively or already looking at the way in which artificial intelligence can expand and amplify the work that they're doing. So certainly in the drug discovery space, we talked about Spanios Labs, and I think it's a really powerful example, as I said, of using the organoid technology and overlaying artificial intelligence platform on top of that to accelerate drug discovery. And that's just one example of many companies we have in the space of drug discovery. Genetica is a MassChallenge Israel alumni who's doing really extraordinary stuff in personalized depression treatment. So this is a good example of, I think, one is drug discovery and rare diseases. Another is personalized medicine to reduce time to impact. And so the stats, for example, around depression treatments are that, it's less than a 50% chance that your doctor is able to correctly guess which of the many depression medications could be effective. And the way the treatment regimes work is you go on the medication and then you have to wait 6 months to see if it works, and then you switch. And so you can imagine that someone who's suffering from depression may go through 12 months more of experimentation before they can see impact. And so what Genetica has done is they have a very unique sort of technology that, using several drops of blood, pulls out, extracts your biomarkers, and they put it into their both data visualization and machine learning algorithm to predict with a high degree of accuracy at this point which of the many drugs they have in their synthetic system will be most effective. And so your doctor can then prescribe with a much higher efficacy rate the medication or treatment that might be right for you and the next one in line. So, really powerful from an impact perspective, but super exciting when you see this in action in their lab in Tel Aviv or what they're building now in New Jersey. One other, Rendeavor, is all in the AR VR space, and it's about bringing your loved ones and your most cherished memories to you as an aging individual who may not be able to be with family or experience meaningful events. And yet we know how powerful socialization is and a sense of social connectedness is for the aging population. And so really cool technology to provide compelling artificial reality experiences to the aging population to address that need for social connectivity.
I think a shared excitement that we have to come today to talk about these things in real time. These are real people, real companies. It is a true pleasure to share, this period of time talking with you. I just want to go over very quickly some of the highlights of the comments. Great discussion, very helpful for founders. Dream big. Wonderful discussion. Thank you so much. And that is something that I want to echo to you, Kate, for coming here and sharing many of these things. I am excited about learning more about the companies that you highlighted. I know that these webinars are gaining momentum every single week. We're getting flooded with emails and texts and requests from CEOs, entrepreneurs, investors. And I want to encourage people, please subscribe to our newsletter. which is simply subscribe at gershoncapital.com. And we'll keep you up to date on many of the things that we're talking about. And finally, I just want to underscore one thing. We are going to be focusing in on a segment each month about diversity, equity, inclusion, 1 week on early stage emerging companies, 1 week on unicorns, and 1 week for a conversation like this, which I find incredibly exciting, which is a high-level discussion about what's happening now and what's going to be happening in the future. So, Kate, do you have any final words before we sign off? This has been an incredible 45 minutes.
No, thank you for the opportunity to have such a awesome conversation about our shared passions and where the world may go. And to your audience, thank you for joining and congratulations on this amazing platform that you're building.
Everyone, thank you again. Please subscribe. Stay tuned for more amazing things. We have an incredible lineup over the next several weeks, and we are really looking forward to you tuning in. And Kate, if you can hang on for a few minutes, I'm just going to end the broadcast now. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Awesome.